Good morning, Andrea.
Good morning, Robert.
Andrea, let's start first. Tell people who you are, your background, a little bit about what qualifies you to run for the New York City Council and or potentially represent the District Two, the people of District Two.
Sure. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be on the show. I really appreciate the invitation. So, I'm Andrea Gordillo. I'm the proud daughter of Peruvian immigrants. My family came to this country about 40 years ago with nothing but the hope of a better life. And like so many first generation Americans, I was raised to believe in the promise of the American dream, but I've also seen how that dream has slipped further and further out of reach for so many of us. And in today's New York, basic human needs like housing, healthcare, education are treated like privileges when they should be guaranteed rights. And I've lived the struggles of so many of our neighbors. I know what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck. I know what it's like to be uninsured, to take your landlord to housing court. And I've spent my life turning those struggles into action, whether it's been organizing my cafeteria workers in my college, to protesting along Occupy Wall Street, to fighting for tenants and working families here in Lower Manhattan. And I've always been driven by a belief in justice and dignity and community. And for over a decade, I've been serving this district, not from afar, but like on the ground. I've helped secure hundreds of units of affordable housing. I've helped to expand community land trusts. I've helped to fought to keep Beth Israel open. I've advocated for and secured better sanitation services in our parks. I've helped expand job access for local youth at the Union Square Tech Hub. But I've also seen our communities change in ways that makes it so much harder for working and middle class families and small businesses to survive. And I think our communities deserve better. And also, this community has a very powerful legacy of Latina leadership. And, over the years, my community called on me to continue it, not because I'm a career politician, but because I bring grassroots experience, deep relationships, and a bold vision for what's possible. And that's what this community is all about.
How long have you been in the district, living there?
I've lived here for 13 years now.
Okay.
It's my home.
And
Loisaida
what
is my
what I
home.
mean, what so you worked all these things you worked on, all these issues you worked on were for who? What institutions did you uh
Yeah, well, it's a quite a long story. I think when I first moved here, I was working in hospitality as a bartender and a waitress, just trying to get by. I was working on my master's degree at NYU, and then I was also a member of the UAW there. I was working as a social policy researcher, looking at the legacy of the civil rights throughout New York City. And I realized I didn't want to work on theoretical uh, abstract kind of concepts. I wanted to really be doing actual applications of change. So I started working in kind of community and cultural development. I worked for the Loisaida Inc. Center, and later on for the Clemente Soto Vélez. They're both
oh yeah.
cultural centers
Yeah,
that are
yeah, I know. I'm very
rooted.
familiar. Very familiar,
Yeah,
yeah.
but for listeners, they're institutions that come out of the grassroots era of Latino activism that was kind of came out of the context of the fiscal crisis in the 70s in New York, but is still persists some of the disenfranchisement and particularly in the face of a changing demographic makes rooms for the diversity of people here in the district. But then I started working in a lot of other different institutions. I joined my community board 5 years ago. I became the chairwoman.
Okay.
I became appointed to the board of the Public Theater and worked on a lot of different partnerships, navigated many different crises, obviously, since the pandemic. Um, and I was also president of a Democratic Association where I worked on,
So Andrea,
you know, yeah.
I have a bad so you talk about Latina leadership and the district has been represented. I remember I go back to Margarita Lopez,
hmm
and then Rosie. Why haven't any of these people endorsed the women? running, meaning you or Sarah, or what do you attribute that to? Why haven't them
Right.
weighed in if they don't if you're saying that there is value in that, right? In Latino representation. Why do you think that they've chosen to not weigh in? Especially
Right.
when you technically have nothing to lose because you're not in office anymore, conceived, right?
Right. Right. Well, I mean, I think, yeah, I respect all of the women that came before me, and that decision is for them to speak on. I can't make any kind of speculations about that, but I think that I probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. So I definitely have a have a certain degree of respect and deference for the for generations that came before me, obviously. But I think that this moment is about the future, and I think that there's always going to be disagreements between generations. And I think that I personally think Latina and Latino representation is important, not just because policies are shaped by people in the room, and for too long our communities have been left out of those rooms, but because it changes outcomes. It has enormous influence over budget and legislation. We bring the stories, struggles, and solutions of our communities, and also it's about power and pride, right? I think our presence in leadership sends a message. Someone like me sends a message to young people, to women, that they belong and that their voices matter. So, so that's what I'm focused on.
And how do you overcome the sort of groundswell of support as the 5 weeks out, institutional support that Assembly Member Epstein has accumulated, and the advantage he just got endorsed by the Attorney General. Talk about your path. Talk and give me three things. What are the three important, the top things you're hearing from constituents as you move around the district? And talk to me about your path to victory, and some ideas you have on day one if you're elected to the city council.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with a lot of due respect to institutions I myself have been a part of, they don't win elections. It's the voters, and that's a difficult premise to sort of wrangle. But it is the reality, and I think that the past couple of elections have shown us that voters really want change. And I think that running as a change candidate with the record, like proven track record that I have, um, is what's gonna break through in this election. I think I'm hearing a lot of kind of a, a mix of desperation and sort of a lot of people who feel like government isn't working for them, that Washington is broken, that Albany is broken. And I think that my sort of leadership is what's people are looking for. They want someone who's going to be a fighter and someone who's lived the failures of government. And I hear that on the doors. Voters are very, very supportive. They're excited to see a fresh voice running in this race. And they're concerned about housing, affordability, the Trump administration, and what that's going to mean particularly for the seniors. And they're demanding change in bolder voices. And I think that's cutting through to them on the doors. And like I said, I'm out there every single day, and this is my favorite part of campaigning is talking to the voters. And so I think that come election day, I think I'll have a very, very solid groundswell of support by then.
What will you do on day one if you're elected?
Um, I think, I mean, as a matter of practicality, I think we have to think about how we're governing. And so setting up the office, trying to have a vision for governance, for co-governance with all the different constituencies in the district is going to be important, but also mindful of the people who can't afford to participate, right? Who are the people that are not being represented? And having a sort of a set of governance, because we're going to really need to be very creative in how we govern and how we protect our communities. So I want to, on day one, I want to make sure that I'm touring the district, listening to folks, understanding how to build collective power and leadership together. That's going to be critical because, like I said, we're going to be facing many, many challenges. And then kind of budget and legislatively looking at I think one of my first acts will be looking at ways to redirect any sort of federal tax money that we give to Washington. We're going to need to redirect to the city, because it's the first line of defense against the broken politics in Washington and Albany, and making sure that we're protecting the communities through budget, through legislation. That's what I'm going to be looking at day one, and then kind of honing in on some of the other pieces of legislation as it relates to climate resiliency, to housing, and to the livability, the quality of life that we all deserve.
Question, Andrea. If the case is that again, hypothetically, the race is not moving in the direction that you like in the up and coming days or weeks, would you consider backing someone else and saying, "Hey, I'm going to run for the assembly"? Is that something you would be open to?
Um, well, I can't run for. I mean, I live in the 65th Assembly District, so that's Assemblymember Grace Lee's position. So I would have to.
Change
That's not something
residency,
I'm
right? That's not in the
considering.
cards,
Yeah,
right?
that's not something I'm considering. And I ran for city council for very specific reasons. I'm not running because, I want a shorter commute, or because I need to redeem myself, or because I just want power. I'm running because I think this community deserves a certain kind of representation that has always had grassroots leadership, women, Latinos, all of those things, and somebody who's going to fight tirelessly to defend it, who understands its legacy, who understands how to bridge the need for change, but while also preserving the things that make New York so great, and makes New Yorkers so proud to call themselves New Yorkers.
Andrea, thank you so much for your time. Any parting
Yeah.
words? Anything you want to add that I forgot to mention?
Just that, the city council is so important because our democracy is under attack by Trump. And I'm here as a first generation daughter of immigrants because I believe in voting and democracy, and that we can do better than what we have right now. And I think that's when we're making our decisions at the ballot box this year. I think it's so important to think about who are the next generations of leaders who are going to build up a bench, build up a intergenerational legacy of power that's going to actually defend the most vulnerable people and lift us all up from the bottom. So that's what I would impart on your listeners, and I really thank you for the opportunity, and hope to speak to you again about politics, policies, and everything that is to come, and to make our city more livable, and just have a little bit more dignified.
Thank you, Andrea, for your time, and I wish you all the best in your race and continued success. And thanks again. Talk soon. Bye
Thanks,
bye.
Roberto. Have a great one. Take care.